Okay, so in this video, we're gonna carry on with the idea of this pickaxe. Now we're gonna try to finish it, okay? So by now, some of you probably, or most likely all of you, finished this up by doing something like this, right? And of course, doing the whole other side. Now, this is not completely wrong, but there is in fact easier ways of doing things like this, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo most of it, and then what I'm going to do here is let's separate what is happening here from the rest of the environment, okay? So if we take a look at this area, this pickaxe, we can separate the entire shape into three very specific outlines, okay? So we have this sort of bigger type of rectangle shape. We can call that the handle. That's going to be area number one. And then we have this second rectangle or square. We can call that the main body. And then we have the two ends of the pick, okay? So we're going to separate this into three separate definite areas, and then we're going to carry on with the example, okay? So what I'm going to do here is instead of creating another line section that stops there and then another one to the right and then another one up, I'm going to just make one area or one line that extends all the way up there. And as you can see, that follows the contour exactly like we want, okay? And I'm gonna repeat the same process on the other side. So as we can see there, we just created that one very specific area, and that has our perfect outline, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna repeat the process on this other side. So something like this. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to do the two picks. Okay. So something like that. Hit escape. And then go to create arc. 3-point arc. Start there. Start there. And my 1 point in between. Okay. Repeat the process on this other side. And there it is. Okay. So again, this is a little bit more efficient way of creating something like this. Now, I don't know what this point, oh yeah, I know exactly what that point is. So we have arcs, right? So arcs are nothing more than sections of a circle. So as soon as we created one of the two arcs, this little point was created as well. And then this other point down here was created. Okay, so those 2 points, like you can see, this one here highlights this arc on the left. So all it is just the center of the arc. Same thing with this other one, right? Okay. So from here, we just created the perfect contour of the pickaxe. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude it. So I'm going to extrude all of the sections. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a size. Okay, so I don't know, half an inch. And if we rotate, we can see the pickaxe that we just created. Okay, now at this point, this is gonna be okay, just given the fact that we used the template and the template should be perfect, right? So we're basing all of our measurement on the image itself, but I still have one thing that's very wrong within my sketch, okay? And that is, if we take a look at the actual sketch, so I'm gonna undo the extrude. If we take a look at this sketch, I have nothing but blue lines inside, okay? So all those blue lines, they can all still be modified. Okay, so they're not stuck in place. They're not fully defined, fully constrained. Okay, and at this point, this might not be an issue here with something so simple, but eventually when you build more complex shapes, then you're gonna really have a hard time if you don't fully constrain stuff, because some lines, arcs, curves, rectangles, triangles, whatever it might be, they might just move by accident. Like you move something and the whole thing just explodes because it's not correctly defined, or you make a huge mistake that costs a lot of money, right? So in this case, let's talk about how to define these lines correctly, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save this one. Now, you don't have to do this. I'm just going to do it so I can sort of work in different steps, and then that way I can show you what is going on, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save this one. I'm going to call this pickaxe2, and then let's do 2_1, okay? So I'm going to save this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another one, or I'm going to save this same thing, the same file with different numbers. Okay, so this is going to be also 2, and it's also going to be 3. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with number 1. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to open up my sketch. Now notice how here when I open up my sketch, my my canvas disappeared. Okay, that might happen, don't worry too much. All you really have to do at this point, we don't really need the canvas. In this case, if you don't want to see the canvas, all you have to do is go to canvases and then hit that eyeball. Okay, now what I'm going to do on this side, I'm going to delete all of the extra stuff except for my handle. Okay, so I'm going to remove all of these extras and all of these extras, and of course the inside. There we go. Okay, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to define this area completely, so all my lines are now black. So now we're talking about fully defining the sketches. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we need to sort of keep in mind when doing stuff like this. Okay, the first one, probably the most important, is the list of the items that we need to fully define. Okay, the list is composed of 4 items. The first one is position X and position Y. Okay, so that's 1 and 2. Now in this case, I don't have positions for any of my lines. Okay, I know they're somewhere within this coordinate system of X and Y, but I don't know exactly where. Okay, now there's a couple of ways we can do that. We have the origin to sort of use as a reference point, or we have the edges of the original square. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first define this line with some X and Y's. Okay, so I'm going to go into D for dimension. I'm going to hit that corner and I'm going to hit this corner. Okay, and then I'm going to adjust that position. Now I don't have to modify the actual number. Instead, I'm just going to type enter, because I already know that this sketch is perfect because I used the template, right? So you don't have to modify any of the numbers at this point. All we're doing is just setting that number to be that specific number. Okay, now that's my X. I'm going to repeat the process for my Y. So there it is. Now at this point, there's absolutely nothing I can do to move that point. It's set in space, X and Y. Okay. Now my list includes two other things, and that is size and angle. Okay. So let me go ahead and do something like this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you the numbers again. So number 1, position X. Number 2, position Y. Number 3, size. And number 4, angle or orientation. Okay, so we're going to go through those 4. Okay, just keep that in mind. So position X, position Y, we're good. Now size. Now at this point, let's just focus on this one line. Okay, so I'm going to give it a size, again, dimension. Now I can either give it a sort of an X, a Y, or a hypotenuse. Okay, so let's give it a hypotenuse type of size. And let's not worry about the other ones just yet. Okay. So that's position X, position Y, size, and now I have to define the angle. So there's a couple of ways we can do that, right? So I can either sort of extend this line and make an angle with this X, or make an angle with this Y. So what I can try to do is probably something like that. So hit that line, hit this line, and that's going to give me an angle, right? So I have position X, position Y, size, and angle, and notice the color of that line. As long as I have those 4 things, my line is going to be fully defined. Okay, so that's one. Okay, let's try the other one. So this one, we no longer have to worry about position X and position Y, because this line is starting where the previous one ended. And if I do all the math, I can figure out exactly this point, okay? Because I know what this point is. So this point here is minus 2.5, minus 2.5. And then this point here is minus 2.5 plus 149. And then I can do the math of this size with SOHCAHTOA, right? So I can figure out what this angle is, what this hypotenuse is, do sine, cosine, tangent to figure out the X. And then I can figure out this location, right? So that point specifically, we know the X and Y of that point, okay? Now this line, all I need to worry about is giving it a size and angle, okay? So in this case, we give it a hypotenuse and the actual angle. For this next line, let's give it a rise and run, okay? So there's my run, and there's my rise. Okay, again, you can probably figure out what that size is just given on SOHCAHTOA, right? So trigonometry. And then up here, this line is black because it's horizontal, and we know this location, but we don't know how far it's going to extend this way. Okay, so as you can see, that can change. So what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to give it one size because it already has an angle, right? So same thing as this one down here, except this one also has the angle. It already has the X and Y because of this point. It has the angle because it's perpendicular to this Y, and all it needs is a size, okay? So I'm going to give it a size. So dimension, there we go. Now notice, as soon as I do the 3 lines, the 4th line is going to automatically be defined because we know the location starting and we know the location ending, okay? So that line is already going to be defined, okay, no matter what. Now, it doesn't matter how complex of a shape you have, right? So you might have something completely crazy and utter nonsense, and you can still make it work just given the 4 items on the list, okay? So as long as you have this, you're gonna be able to make anything up and still define it, okay? Now, again, focus on position X and position Y first, on one of the sections. It doesn't matter which, just one of the sections. And then do the rest, okay? So at this point, it might look like a lot of stuff going on. And remember, this is just one part, okay? So if we were to carry on with this into the second part, let me save it, okay? I'm gonna probably open up the second one. So let me do that. So there's the second one. Now in this one, instead of deleting everything, I'm just gonna delete the stuff from the actual pics, okay? So I'm gonna leave section 1 and section 2 intact. Like so, okay? And then I'm just gonna sort of repeat the process real quick. So I'm gonna do dimensions for the main or the handle, okay? So again, X, Y, size, oops, here's my size, and angle or rise and run, same difference, right? So there's my rise, there's my run, and then finally up here, right? Okay. And then this second one, what I'm going to do with this area is I'm just going to repeat the process, okay? So let's forget about position X and position Y for a second. Let's just do size and angle for each of the sections, okay? So what I'm going to do is size, angle, okay? Size, angle, or rise and run, okay? Same difference. Size, angle, okay? Now, I don't need to define this fourth section. Like I said before, I know what this is and I know what this is. The issue that we're seeing here is everything's still blue because I'm still missing position X and position Y, no matter what, okay? Now, instead of doing the position X and position Y reference to either the main square or the origin, what I'm going to do here is I'm now going to make the reference to the handle, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this corner of the handle to this corner of the main body, okay? And then that's going to be my Y. And I'm going to do the same process for the X, okay? And now, with magic, the entire second rectangle or second square, whatever this is, turn black, okay? And all I did is follow the 4 items on the list, okay? Position X, position Y, size and angle. Now, again, I completely understand there might be a lot of stuff here that's not making too much sense. All of these numbers don't really have to make sense, okay? All they need to do is be the specific number that it is for this thing to be fully defined, fully constrained, and it doesn't go anywhere, okay? Now, there's some other ways that you can do this. One of them is fix and unfix constraint, and it's just gonna lock everything in place, okay? So like you can read there, it locks the size and location of a point or object. That's probably the easiest tool to use for this case because we know it's perfect. But one thing I can tell you in this class is don't ever use fix or unfix constraint in a sketch, okay? Just don't do it, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna try to get lazy and you're just gonna go with the fix unfix. And what you'll find out is that there's some things that you might not be understanding, and just to get out of being in trouble for not finishing something, you're just gonna throw in a fix or unfix when, if you don't put yourself in that situation, then you're gonna be able to constrain anything you have, okay? So just try not to use fix or unfix in these sketches whatsoever. Just don't do it, and then you'll be better off, okay? And then eventually, if you needed to finish this, then you could just continue the same process for the two sides of the pick, okay? Now, this is a little bit more complicated than previous examples, but it's still fairly easy because all you're doing is really just going off the 4 atoms on the list. Okay, so it's nothing crazy complex. Just make sure you understand what you're doing. Follow this video tutorial, pause, rewind whenever you need to, and then you'll eventually get the hang of it. And of course, we're gonna get a lot more examples with these things, so you'll be having enough practice to understand what's happening with these things. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it there, and then we'll carry on later on.